farm at the time. And welcome to the show, Clive. I saw a very emotional interview with you today in the Daily Telegraph, setting out what yesterday's budget decision means for you, your family and your future. Before we move into that, tell us about your farm and how it got started and how that legacy has been passed on now through 3 generations.
Okay, good evening. Thank you for inviting me. Basically, as you just said, my grandfather was the first generation. I'm third generation. When he started the farm just after World War II, obviously a time when food security was very much at the front of the population's thoughts. I can imagine rationing still in place. He was a tenant farmer, so he rented a farm, built that business over the years, took risk, worked hard, often expense. He lived him and my grandmother lived a very frugal kind of lifestyle. Saved, borrowed, managed to buy land, which then I think in the kind of late 60s, my father went to agricultural college and then came home to join him. He continued to expand the farm, again, taking risk, working hard, living quite modestly as children and whatever. The house that I grew up in, we'd been working a hell of a lot, milking cows, which that ended after around the foot and mouth time or whatever. So we went more just to be, as we are today, an arable farm, all combinable crops, wheat, barley, beans, that kind of thing, literal Staffordshire. I've continued to build that up, taken risk again. Like to think I've worked hard, borrowed money to build that business to make it sustainable for my family. And going forward, I've got 2 children, William and Henry, 11 and 13. It would have been nice to have the option to be able to pass forward, when I inevitably die at some point and pass away. So I always think at least my grandfather, all that hard work and the fact that he didn't live any kind of excessive fancy billionaire or millionaire type lifestyle. He died in his mid-60s, sadly, so quite a long time ago when I was quite young. But at least he passed away in the knowledge that that work, would benefit his son and his grandson and his grandchildren that weren't born at that time.
And Clive, I must admit, I got quite choked when I read and I still do now, when I read what you wrote about the realisation that you seem to be having that maybe this is the end of the line for your farm. You put in the article there, after this, it's just not the case anymore. This is the end of the line. Talking about the inability, perhaps, to pass the farm on to your children, you just mentioned. That must be an incredibly painful thing to have to face up to. And I want to ask you how that makes you feel and how what this government has done and how that makes you feel in your heart, Clive.
Yeah, well, look, first and foremost, this isn't about me. This is about family farms in general. I can see what this policy is trying to achieve. The investment by some super rich individuals, hundreds of millions of pounds worth of farmland, mainly based around inheritance tax paying, I'm sure. I can understand that's not right. Every part has got to do its bit, pay their taxes to make sure that we have a country that we're proud to live in, a good NHS, good public services. We understand that. That's totally right. This isn't the correct way to do it. Beating up family farms, which is a multi-generational, vocational occupation. No family farmer is doing it for the money. I have some other business interests and whatever, which subsidise my farming lifestyle. But if I was just living off the farming income, I don't think my family would be living off the national minimum wage. So, frankly, it wouldn't be worth doing. So it's marginal, and there's little reasons to be a farmer right now. You take away this ability to pass this on, and the idea that you're just going to leave your children with this 20% liability, which, the return on investment, the profits aren't there to service a loan for that, or let alone make repayments. And even if they were, you'd just be doing that so 20, another working lifetime down the line, they'd be leaving the same for their children. What's the point in that? It makes no sense anymore. So yeah, it makes me feel incredibly sad. My children may never have wanted to be farmers, but it would have been nice to be able to give them that option, wouldn't it?
Clive, I'm joined in the studio by our political editor, Chris Hope. He also has a question for you.
Clive, today Steve Reed, he's the Environment Secretary, he said on social media the wealthy are buying up huge estates to avoid paying tax, and that's the target. You mentioned it there obliquely in your comments. Is this right? Do you see around you businesses, landowners buying up land to avoid IHT, and that's what the target is? Or is that, you think, an excuse to get more money into the exchequer?
No, he's not wrong. That is happening. The extent of it, I don't think it's a huge phenomenon, but there have been some particularly high-profile cases, kind of particularly rich UK entrepreneurs that have done this or whatever. But in those cases, you're talking hundreds of millions of pounds worth of land, not 1 million. That figure is nonsense, and that absolutely shows the complete ignorance and lack of understanding of this government and Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer in this particular issue. £1 million, as has been mentioned by several people, myself included, is a combine is £500,000 piece of equipment. A tractor is £250,000. Buildings, milking parlours. You can spend £1 million apparently on a milking parlour. I haven't got cows, but apparently you can spend £1 million in a milking parlour. You get to that £1 million figure very quickly. Now, they've tried to suggest that there's this 73% of farms that won't be affected because they're all under that £1 million. And actually, those figures are warped, because that number, that under £1 million, that's made up of some of those lifestyle people that have made their money elsewhere, bought a posh house in the country, of room for a pony, and maybe rent a field to somebody. And off the back of that, they get the box ticked and they're claiming APR. So actually, the people that they've tried to protect and exempt, they're not family farmers. They're the rich asset owners at the bottom end of the scale. And then at the top end, where you've got these hundreds of millions of pound type land buyers. But the family farm, that is in that, I don't know, that kind of 3 to maybe £10 million kind of bracket. They're the ones that they need to protect. That 1 million figure needs changing to 10, and you might be achieving the right thing then.
That's what I think. That's what I think will happen. I think they'll have to lift up that threshold.
And Clive,
I hope it will, and
Clive, could I ask you, there's a protest planned for November the 19th in central London. We saw pretty Queensberry rules to date. We've seen a few tractors driving around Parliament Square, honking their horns, flashing their lights. Nothing at all like the activities we're seeing on the continent, in France, in Holland, outside Brussels, Miles stomping ground, spraying a bit of slurry at the Parliament building. We can see there, look, this is council officers in France. They don't mess about in France. Do you think we need to see a bit more of this kind of action in Britain? Take the gloves off, take it to them in Westminster, get a bit more of a rural revolt going on, Clive Bailye.
Well, I mean, look, first off, the march or protest or whatever it is that the NFU are organising in London, I support absolutely anything that helps raise awareness around this right now and tries to get message across. However, I spend a little bit of time in London, and it strikes me there's a protest or a rally or someone protesting outside Westminster pretty much every day or every time I visit. I don't think that's the kind of thing that's going to make enough impact this time. I don't, it's a good thing. I support it. I'll be there, but I don't think it's enough. Now, I'm in contact with a lot of UK farmers via social media. I run a website that a lot of them use called the Farming Forum. Yesterday, I think they were in shock. Today, you increasingly can see that shock turning to anger. A lot of them are basically saying, yeah, we need to get more French. We need to start, kind of causing chaos. And farmers, believe me, of all industries, they do have it within their power. The equipment that farmers have and their resourcefulness, they do have the ability to create economic chaos. If they start blocking roads or parking tractors or driving them around at rush hour, whatever, they can cause economic crash. They could hold the government to ransom on this. But what I will say is that's tempered by, as you say, we're more polite. UK farmers playing much more by Queensberry rules. We have no desire to punish or inconvenience the public. We don't want an ambulance not getting through to hospital because someone's been held up by a tractor or a motorway's blocked. So I don't think you'll see that. But what is being talked about, the rumour I'm hearing a lot at the moment, and I think it's beginning to come reality, is they're talking about potentially strike action, not letting food leave the farm. We all know how just-in-time type supply chains work now, how fragile they can be. I think that could very easily lead to the kind of panic buying that we saw with fuel and we saw with toilet roll, empty shelves. And, I think most people could go longer without toilet roll than they can without food, can't they?
Amazing stuff. Farmers